draw up a play for me and give me the ball and get out of my way. And that was the end of the X and O's.
Then he walked by a bench. He said, I told you what I'm going to do, and I'm always going to do it. And he looked at Xavier and he said, didn't I tell you what I was going to do?
I'm like, oh, my gosh. So he tells the Phoenix bench, tells the coaches, yeah, I'm just fixing to bust a three on you guys and just go home. I'm tired of this.
Larry Bird isn't just remembered as one of the greatest players of all time. He's remembered as one of the most ruthless talkers to ever step on an NBA court. Bird didn't need theatrics. He didn't yell in your face or flex after shots. Instead, he hit you with icy one-liners, told you exactly what he was going to do, then did it over and over again. For a guy who looked more like your neighbor than an NBA superstar, Larry could dominate the league physically, mentally, and emotionally. And the legends who went up against him, they've got the stories to prove it. He wasn't the fastest, he didn't jump the highest, but he understood the game on a level most players couldn't even process. Bird didn't just beat you, he broke you down, move by move, word by word. He'd call the play before it happened, run it to perfection, and let you know you never had a chance. And the best part, he didn't need to say much. One sentence, one smirk, one shot. That was enough. Because when Larry Bird spoke, he backed it up with cold-blooded execution. And by the time the final buzzer sounded, you weren't just outscored, you were outsmarted, outworked, and outclassed. Today, we're breaking down why some of the greatest NBA names, trash talkers and all, still tip their hat to Larry Legend. If anyone knows the art of trash talk, it's Gary the Glove Payton. Known for talking nonstop, Gary built a career on locking down guards and breaking their confidence in real time. Payton prided himself on being the guy who could get under anyone's skin. But Larry was tough to crack, and it forced Gary to do something he rarely ever did: stay quiet. Because when Larry Bird starts doing everything he said he would, what else can you say?
Xavier wasn't soft, man, and Larry wasn't either, man. Larry said, man, I'm gonna give it to you any way I want to.
Payton recalled how Bird didn't just talk. You actually believed what he said. The way Bird delivered his lines wasn't loud or flashy, but cutting, deadpan. You'd go down the court wondering if he actually meant what he said, until he nailed the exact shot he promised, right in your face. Bird's trash talk had layers. He'd get personal, he'd get strategic, he'd even talk to your coach or your bench mid-play. For Payton, it wasn't just about the words. It was how Bird backed it up every single time. Dominique Wilkins came into the league as one of the most exciting young stars. High flyer, scorer, all-star caliber from day one. But throughout the 1980s, one constant reminder of just how tough the league really was came in the form of Larry Bird. According to Dominique, there was no taking plays off, no coasting. Bird played with a chip on his shoulder, and he brought it every single night. Bird didn't just try to beat you, he wanted to humiliate you. Dominique described those matchups as some of the most intense and personal battles of his career.
Hey, listen, first time I played against him, I'm a rookie, I'm glad to be in the league, I'm in the Boston Garden, and I'm guarding him, right? First play of the game, he said, I don't know why you got you guarding me, Holmes. I was like, huh? He shoots a three. And I wasn't mad he made the three. I said, but this some bitch called me Holmes. And so the next play, I'm pissed. So he comes out, he shifts to his right, and I jump. I said, I got him. And I'm pumping it by my hand, and I banged it on him, right? And he on the ground, he fouled me, and I'm pointing. And he said, hey, Rook. I'm like, what? He said, I like you. You got balls. He said, I'm still getting 30 on your ass tonight. He got about 37.
In the end, for Dominique Wilkins, facing Larry Bird throughout the 80s was more than just another matchup. It was a mental and emotional challenge every single time. Bird wasn't trying to impress you, he was trying to break you. And no matter how high Dominique jumped or how many points he put up, Bird always found a way to stay one step ahead. Going up against Larry Bird wasn't just about talent, it was about toughness, intelligence, and the ability to survive 48 minutes of pure psychological warfare. But Dominique wasn't the only high-level player who had to learn the hard way. Even the toughest teams of the era, Those built on intimidation and physicality had their hands full with Larry Bird. John Sally, a key piece of the infamous Bad Boys Pistons, had seen it all. He'd gone toe-to-toe with the league's biggest egos and strongest bodies. But even Sally, surrounded by some of the NBA's most fearless enforcers, never forgot what it was like to go up against Bird.
But Larry was, he would talk and he would say, Sal, you better ask for a double team, bro. And I was like, when are you going to keep when are you going to let these people know you're a black guy from Indiana? When are you going to do that? Stop this whiteness. What are you doing?
Sally said Bird had this calm demeanor. He looked like the least threatening guy on the court. But once the ball tipped, he became someone else. He'd talk, hit the shot, and then casually jog back as if nothing happened. Sally once said it was like Bird was playing a different game, mentally ahead and totally unfazed. And it wasn't just the bruisers from the Eastern Conference who felt it. Out west, guys were getting the same treatment. Dan Marley was a hard-nosed defender and shooter who made a name for himself in the 90s with Phoenix. Not exactly the kind of guy who got rattled easily. But guarding Bird was different. You couldn't take your foot off the gas, not even for a second. Bird would find the smallest opening, call his shot before the play even developed, and then drill it like he'd seen it all happen already.
And that's just my era. I grew up idolizing Larry Bird. It was funny, the first time that I played in my rookie year, I guarded Larry Bird, and it took me about 10 minutes to realize I should be probably guarding him instead of staring at him. And he came down, it was funny, he came down one time, and Mark West was the center on our team, and Larry looked at me, and then he looked at Mark, and he said, Mark, I'm going to go down, I'm going to come off the screen, I'm going to catch it right there, I'm going to turn around, I'm going to shoot it in the rookie's face, and then I'm going to run down the floor. And that's exactly what he did.
For a rookie like Marley, it was a crash course in just how ruthless Larry Bird could be. It wasn't just that he was scoring, it was that he told you how and where he was going to do it, and still left you helpless to stop it. That kind of control, mental and physical, was what made Bird different. And for Marley, it was the fastest way to understand that nothing about guarding Larry Bird was ever going to be easy. The scary part wasn't just that he scored, it was that he made you feel like you couldn't stop it. That psychological edge was always in Bird's pocket. And it didn't stop with wings and guards. Bird made life just as miserable for the big men down low, especially the ones who thought they could bully their way to an edge. Patrick Ewing was never one to shy away from trash talk. Ewing was used to banging in the post, throwing elbows, and letting his presence be felt. As a physical big man with a dominant inside game, he was usually the one setting the tone. But even he had to admit Larry Bird operated differently.
What kind of stuff did Bird say?
Oh, he told us a lot. I remember a couple times he drove to the hole and I tried to jump and try to block the shot. You better sit down, boy. You're going to pop your arm out of socket before you get this. Or before I got there, there was a big thing between he and Bernard King. Mm-hmm. And I remember the guys telling me that he used to run by the bench telling, Hubie Brown was the coach. Hubie, you better get Bernard off me. I'm liable to get 60 tonight. You better put somebody else on me. Just, things like that.
For Ewing, the difference with Bird was that his trash talk wasn't constant. It was calculated. He'd pick his spots, he chose who to torment on the court, then will drop 60 on your entire team like it was a warm-up. You knew what he was doing, and you still couldn't do anything about it. What stood out was the look Bird carried. Never rattled, never fazed. Just locked in. And for a physical presence like Ewing, who was used to wearing opponents down, that unshakable demeanor said it all. Bird wasn't just tough, he was untouchable. Reggie Miller considers himself a master of trash talk. It was part of what made him one of the most clutch players in NBA history. But before he truly made his mark in the league, he had a humbling experience with Larry Bird that perfectly captured Bird's legendary confidence. In a room filled with the league's best shooters, guys who had spent years perfecting their stroke, Bird walked in. He didn't even bother loosening up. He looked around the room and asked one simple question. So, who's coming in second?
When I walked in there, he's sitting there, and I said, boy, them red, white, and blue balls are so slippery, I can't hold on to them. And the next time I came, I said, okay, now they're down to the nitty-gritty. Who's coming in second? You already know who's going to win this. and I got lucky because I almost got beat in the first round.
But what was the reaction after you said that? Like, oh, that's just Larry Legend, or did it get dead silence in there?
It was silence. I think they were a little nervous.
I like it.
I think they were nervous.
Hearing this from the legend himself, as if he marked that day in his mind and never forgot about, shows his true competitive nature. For Reggie, it wasn't just about the shooting, it was about presence. Larry didn't need to prove anything. His confidence did the talking before the ball even left his hands. And that's what made him different. He didn't just beat you, he convinced you it was going to happen, then made sure you remembered it. Reggie may have experienced Bird's confidence from the opponent's side, but some got to witness it up close like Danny Ainge. The surprising thing, Larry Bird wasn't loud. He wasn't the guy always talking or looking for attention. In fact, most of the time, he was quiet, kept to himself, focused, all business. But when he did talk, it mattered. Bird didn't waste words. His trash talk wasn't constant. It was sharp, timely, and vicious. And playing alongside Bird gave Ainge a front row seat to just how relentless Larry could be. Game in and game out.
Larry was a quiet guy, and he wasn't like a loud and obnoxious personality, but he had a great sense of humor, and he was a character. And most of the time, his trash talking, it seemed like it was for motivation. It wasn't like he was just always trash talking to everybody. It was just, it was spotty, but when he did it, it was big.
Right.
You know, like I'm going to, is Xavier McDaniel's story where, I'm going to shoot it fake here, shoot it there. And, and they did exactly. And it had nothing to do with the play call.
Right.
Like our coach would call timeout and we're going to do this. And like we walk on the court and Bird just looks at me and goes, no, give me the ball right there.
Ainge has said that Bird didn't always use trash talk just to get under his opponent's skin. Sometimes he used it to light a fire under himself. It was like flipping a switch. He'd find something, anything, to turn into fuel. A lazy defender, a comment from the bench, a quiet crowd. Bird would use it as a reason to go at you harder. For Bird, trash talk wasn't just about getting an edge over others. It was about pushing himself to stay sharp, stay aggressive, and stay in control. Another teammate, Kevin McHale, knew exactly what Bird was about. But what's interesting is even McHale was surprised sometimes by how sharp Larry's trash talk could be. McHale had seen the battles, heard the stories, and been right there next to Bird for countless games. But there were still moments where Bird's timing, delivery, and sheer boldness would catch even him off guard. It wasn't just that Bird talked, it was how precise he was with it. He'd deliver one-liners so effortlessly, you almost forgot he was in the middle of a high-stakes game.
Remember Anthony Mason, just the kind of the point forward, power guy, just big, strong guy. And he's sitting out there, man, that guy's like, he's got, muscles everywhere. So before the game, Larry looks at him, he goes, hey, Kevin. I said, yeah. He goes, look at this guy, man. And he's standing there, he goes, look at all those muscles. And, Anthony Mason's just standing there kind of posing, and then Larry looks at him and goes, yeah, all those muscles aren't going to help you tonight. He said, I'm going to bust you up. And Larry would shoot the ball and yell muscles when he was shooting it. And I was...
McHale called Bird a savage with a sense of timing. Bird would bait defenders into overcommitting, then hit the shot and turn to McHale on the bench like, told you. He made it a game within the game. What stuck with McHale the most wasn't just Bird's ability, it was how Bird used his talk to manipulate the floor. He'd shift momentum with a sentence, get in someone's head, force bad shots, take control. And that's why McHale didn't just see him as a great player, he saw him as a mental assassin. Now, Clark Kellogg only had a short run in the NBA due to injuries, but he played during the prime of Bird's career. And in that short time, he got a front row seat to Bird's trash talk.
He was a difficult guy for me to deal with personally. Marcus Johnson was in his heyday. 2 at that time, and was problematic. But hopefully I made it tough for the guys who had to deal with me for that short time that I was in the league.
Well, you were too nice. I'm sure Larry Bird didn't trash talk you because you're a nice guy.
He was non-discriminatory in regards to who got.
Wait, what would he say to you? You're one of the nicest guys on the planet. What could
Well, I didn't get the brunt of it, as I've heard over the years. Get your hands off of me. It's going to be a long night. That kind of stuff. You can't guard me. And he would do it like a ventriloquist, because you couldn't see his mouth move.
And how quickly it could rattle even veterans. Kellogg didn't catch the worst of Larry Bird's trash talk. He wasn't on the receiving end of some legendary verbal takedown, but that didn't mean Bird didn't leave an impression. In fact, what stuck with Clark the most were the little things, those quiet, matter-of-fact lines that came mid-play, almost like casual observations. Bird wouldn't always go for the knockout. Sometimes it was a simple comment. Nothing loud, nothing flashy, but it hit you all the same, because by the time you processed it, the ball was already through the net. The Chief himself, Robert Parrish, spent over a decade alongside Bird in Boston, and if you think playing with Larry spared you from his sharp tongue, you'd be wrong. Parrish might have been a quiet, composed presence on the floor, but even he wasn't exempt from Bird's competitive fire. Larry didn't care if you were a future Hall of Famer or his longtime teammate. If you missed a rotation, got beat on defense, or weren't locked in, he'd let you know. And he didn't need to raise his voice to do it. A cold stare, a quick jab, or a brutally honest comment was all it took.
One thing you got to give Larry Bird, he could be red hot or ice cold. He never stopped talking trash, ever. Their main man was Tom Chambers, and Chambers was guarding Larry. And so in the jump ball circle, Larry walked through myself and Chambers, and then came back and told Chambers, I know you guarding me, and I want you to know something. There's only one man that can guard me, and that's God. Now think about that for a second. Think about the confidence and the arrogance it takes to make that statement.
Parrish respected it though, because more than anything, he admired Bird's unshakable confidence on the floor. No matter the score, no matter the opponent, Larry carried himself like he was in complete control of the game.